Welcome to this reading of Chapter 3 from Heal Thyself by Dr. Edward Bach, a pioneering work exploring the connection between our emotions and overall well-being. Join me, Brilliancy Amajan, as we delve into this insightful chapter to unlock the path to a healthier, more harmonious life. Chapter 3. What we know as disease is the terminal stage of a much deeper disorder. And to ensure complete success in treatment, it is obvious that dealing with the final result alone will not wholly effective unless the basic cause is also removed. There is one primary error which man can make, and that is action against unity. This originates in self love. So, also, we may say that there is but one primary affliction, discomfort, or disease. And as action against unity may be divided into various types, so also may disease. The result of these actions be separated into main groups corresponding to their causes. The very nature of an illness will be a useful guide to assist in discovering the type of action which is being taken against the divine law of love and unity. If we have in our nature sufficient love of all things, then we can do no harm, because that love would stay our hand at any action, our mind at any thought which might hurt another. But we have not yet reached that state of perfection. If we had, there would be no need for our existence here. But all of us are seeking and advancing towards that state. And those of us who suffer in mind or body are by this very suffering being led towards that ideal condition. And if we will but read it aright, we may not only hasten our steps towards that goal, but also save ourselves illness and distress. From the moment the lesson is understood and the error eliminated, there is no longer need for the correction, because we must remember that suffering is in itself beneficent, in that it points out to us when we are taking wrong paths and hasten our evolution to its glorious perfection. The real primary diseases of man are such defects as pride, cruelty, hate, self love, ignorance, instability, and greed. And each of these, if considered, will be found to be adverse to unity. Such defects as these are the real diseases, using the word in the modern sense, and it is continuation and persistence in such defects after we have reached that stage of development when we know them to be wrong, which persists in the body, and the injurious results which we know as illness. Pride is due firstly to lack of recognition of the smallness of the personality and its utter dependence on the soul, and that all the success it may have are not of itself but are blessings bestowed by the divine within. Secondly, the loss of the sense of proportion, of the minuteness of one amidst the scheme of creation, as pride invariably refuses to bend with humility and resignation to the will of the great Creator, it commits actions contrary to that will. Cruelty is a denial of the unity of all and a failure to understand that any action adverse to another is in opposition to the whole, and hence an action against unity. No man would practice its injurious effects against those near and dear to him, and by the law of unity we have to grow until we understand that everyone, as being part of a whole, must become near and dear to us, until even those who persecute us call up only feelings of love and sympathy. Hate is the opposite of love, the reverse of the law of creation. It is contrary to the whole divine scheme and is a denial of the Creator. It leads only to such actions and thoughts which are adverse to unity and the opposition of those which would be dictated by the love. Self love again is a denial of unity and the duty we owe to our brother men by putting the interest of ourselves before the good of humanity and the care and protection of those immediately around us. Ignorance is the failure to learn, the refusal to see truth when the opportunity is offered, and leads to many wrong acts. such as can only exist in darkness and are not possible when the light of truth and knowledge is around us. Instability, indecision, and weakness of purpose results when the personality refuses to be ruled by the higher self and leads us to betray others through our weakness. Such a condition would not be possible had we within us the knowledge of the unconquerable, invincible divinity which is in reality ourselves. Greed leads to a desire of power. It is a denial of the freedom and individuality of every soul. Instead of recognizing that every one of us is down here to develop freely upon his own lines, according to the dictates of the soul alone, to increase his individuality and to work free and unhampered, the personality with greed desires to dictate, mold, and command, usurping the power of the Creator. Such are examples of real disease, the origin and basis of all our suffering and distress. Each of such defects, if persisted in against the voice of the higher self, will produce a conflict which must of necessity be reflected in the physical body, producing its own specific type of malady. We can now see how any type of illness from which we may suffer will guide us to the discovery of the fault which lies behind our affliction. For example, pride, which is arrogance and rigidity of mind, will give rise to those diseases which produce rigidity and stiffness of the body. Pain is the result of cruelty, whereby the patient learns through personal suffering not to inflict it upon others, either from a physical or from a mental standpoint. The penalties of hate or loneliness, violent, uncontrollable temper, mental nerve storms, and conditions of hysteria. The diseases of introspections, neurosis, neurasthenia, and similar conditions which rob life of so much enjoyment are caused by excessive self love. Ignorance and lack of wisdom bring their own difficulties in everyday life. And in addition, should there be a persistence in refusing to see truth when the opportunity has been given, short sightedness and impairment of vision and hearing are the natural consequences. Instability of mind must lead to the same quality in the body with those of various disorders which affect movement and coordination. The result of greed and domination of others is such diseases as will render the sufferer a slave to his own body with the desires and ambitions curbed by the malady. Moreover, the very part of the body affected is no accident but in accordance with the law of cause and effect, and again will be a guide to help us. For example, the heart, the fountain of life and hence of love, is attacked when especially the love side of the nature towards humanity is not developed or is wrongly used. A hand affected denotes failure or wrong in action. The brain, being the center of control, if afflicted, indicates lack of control in the personality. Such must follow as the law of lays down. We are all ready to admit the many results which may follow a fit of violent temper, the shock of sudden bad news. If trivial affairs can thus affect the body, how much more serious and deep rooted must be a prolonged conflict between soul and body. Can we wonder that the result give rise to such grievous complaints as the diseases amongst us today? But yet there is no cause for depression. The prevention and cure of diseases can be found by discovering the wrong within ourselves and eradicating this fault by the earnest development of the virtue which will destroy it, not by fighting the wrong, but by bringing in such a flood of its opposing virtue that it will be swept from our natures. Thanks you for watching. If you enjoyed this reading, please like, share and subscribe to Amazon for more inspiring content. Your support means a lot. Stay tuned for more. Thank you.